Hey, what's up, everyone?
Ooh,
MileSplit Live, back for episode 7. Travis, Brian, and we got Trent in the background here.
What's up, everyone?
Our marketing guy. Wiz with social media. But we got a great show for you today. We're going to get into all the action that happened over the weekend. Plus, we have an interview with nationally ranked head coach of Springville High, Samantha Smith. So that's going to be great. But before we get into all this stuff, we got to go over our national performers.
Yeah, we had a lot of votes last week. It was a really hard decision. A lot of fans getting involved.
And it's not a big surprise. Buchanan Jr. Megan Lowe, who finished second at Woodbridge XC Classic, received 6,100 votes. That is absurd. That's the most votes we've had. and we got over 12,000 for the girls. Right. So she's our national performer of the week.
Shout out to the Buchanan fans.
You're going to get a very large MileSplit T-shirt. We apologize. It's all we have.
You have to share it between the 6,000 of you.
Yeah, and then John Tatter, who won XC Challenge in North Carolina with a great time, 15 minutes, .70. He received over 2,000 votes.
Yeah.
So he's our national boys performer of the week. So congratulations to all those guys. We also had a contest.
Right, the third shirt you could win last week, and the winner is this guy. MileSplit shirt right here. This week it was a Roy Griak prediction. You had to pick the winning team in the gap. Man, I was 1 point off. The most popular pick here were the Wayzata boys and the Great Oak girls. You know, Wayzata boys, obviously I was wrong there. But I went Naperville North. I was one of the only people to pick them to win. I picked Naperville North by 3. They won by 2. Doesn't get much closer than that.
That's real close.
But you had to win one of the team predictions. They get closest on the spread in terms of the point gap. And shout out to Ryan Shoemaker. He was actually 1 point away. He was 1 point off. He had a winning team. He was just 1 point away from where my gap was with the points. So Ryan, really great shot there. But ultimately, I take the win. My current record after 2 weeks is 455, 13 and 4. So just putting that out there.
We've had 2 contests. You're 1-1. That's your record.
Stay tuned. We're gonna get this week's contest will come at the end of today's show.
But one last thing before we get to our interview, we have some great content coming this week. We have a great story about a small cross-country program from Eagle Pass, Texas, which sits right on the border of the U.S. and Mexico. And we explore. Brian and I went to Eagle Pass and we explored sort of what it means to run in that community. So it's a great story. Do you agree, Brian?
It's going to be great.
So it'll be have an eye out for that on Thursday. We'll have that story. But we're going to get into our interview with Springville head coach Samantha Smith. Welcome here, Samantha. How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. So I guess let's get right into it here. You guys obviously have built on some success you had last year. But looking at the rankings, you're ranked 7th right now nationally in our rankings. Do you guys use the national rankings to fuel yourselves at all? Do you guys not look at it? How do you take the rankings into your training?
We look at it, as kind of a guideline, but we don't put too much into it. We're kind of focused on the smaller stuff right now, just region and state, because Timpanogos is in our region. They're a big team for us, and so we're focusing on that. And then after state is when we'll kind of go into looking at the bigger picture of Nike regionals and then nationals. But we look at them.
Gotcha. I mean, that kind of plays right into our next question. I mean, you and Timpanogos there just back and forth, battling it out every other meet. Like, how does that play into strategies, and how do you learn from those races that you see them in all the time?
Last year we didn't see Timpanogos at all until state because they weren't in our region. And that was really hard because we didn't really know what to expect. And so, I mean, we knew they were a good team last year. But this year, because we've seen them a lot more, it has really helped us to kind of get to know their strengths and weaknesses and our strengths and weaknesses and things that we can work on throughout the season to hopefully do better.
So what are some of those strengths and weaknesses that you've saw from your team, along the way?
We have a really awesome top 4. We've had 2 boys, Caleb Garnica and Devin Pancake, step up a lot this year compared to last year, which has made a huge difference on our team. It's just trying to get our 5th, 6th, and 7th to tighten up a little bit more. So that's one advantage that Timpanogos has. They don't have really a huge low stick, but they do have a huge gap or a huge pack that's really helpful for them.
So what are some of the things that y'all work on to try to close that gap between your runners and really get that pack mentality running and going?
Honestly, the boys already do a lot of it on their own just because they're motivated. But a lot of it, the long runs are really important. Doing those long runs together. On Saturdays, we usually do long runs. And then when we don't have meets, we have a couple of workouts that are geared specifically for them to try and tighten up. But most of it is just doing the pace work throughout the week and running with their training group. So,
how important is that training? What has the training been like moving forward? Have you pushed through all these meets that you saw Timpanogos at, or has it been kind of like, well, we're going to taper down for this one, for this important spot in the season, or has it been pushing through?
That's a good question. There's been a couple of meets like BYU, not this last weekend, but the weekend before. That was a hard week for us training wise because we wanted to kind of taper down a little bit for Bob Furman. So we I think everybody, both boys and girls, were tired last week more than, or I guess the weekend of BYU Invite than they were this last weekend for Bob Furman. So.
And the Utah State meet is just around the corner. It's coming in close here. How do all these battles with Timpanogos and just like the other teams kind of prepare you for that state meet where you will see them eventually?
Well, I don't think anybody likes losing by 1 point, and I think more importantly, nobody likes losing in a tiebreaker. So I think because we've had those two experiences in a row from last week to this week, it's taught us and taught the boys specifically some lessons, but specifically you need to, like, every man counts, every single person, even if it's not necessarily your target team where you're like, oh, hey, that's a Timpanogos guy, I want to pass him, or hey, that's a Davis guy, I want to pass him, or an AF guy. It doesn't matter. Every single person you pass makes a huge difference when races are this close. And then finishing all the way through the line because we got outkicked by a couple of people this last weekend. There were a couple of people that were close, that were less than a second away from our guys, and that would have made all the difference. So finishing completely and then making sure that every man counts, I think, were the big lessons we took from the past 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Utah has such depth, and you see it, just as you mentioned with all those teams. But do you guys consider yourself an underdog at all still? Kind of in this fight and being on this national scene and this national level, what's kind of been your view of that? Would you say you're still an underdog, or would you say you're one of the top dogs?
I don't know how to answer that because this is a different new position that we've been in. Last year, I would say we were definitely the underdogs going in. We knew we had potential, and the boys took that and ran with it and worked hard. And this year, we lost 2 seniors last year, and one of them was a very key player in our success last year to graduation. And so we weren't exactly sure what we were going to get going into this year. We knew we were going to be good, but then again, the boys worked hard. And so I don't know if I consider us an underdog, but I also wouldn't consider us a favorite either. I think with the depth in Utah, anything can happen, and it just depends on who has their A game and who wants it more. So
now moving forward, into state, into that NXN region meet, which I'm sure you guys are going to attend, what does the rest of that season look like for you? How are you going to be on your A game and prepared for those big races?
So we have, we're sitting out our varsity this weekend. So we're just going to have a really hard training week this week. And then next week is region. And then we've got about a week and a half between there and state. So we'll do a couple of key workouts there, tune up. And then we've got about a month break in between state and Nike regionals without any real major racing because that's when Utah season ends. So we'll kind of gear up and build and prepare for a second peak for Nike regionals and then eventually nationals.
What's one of the key things you tell your team during that big break to stay mentally prepared and on edge and ready to race at the highest level?
So usually, I can't say usually. Last year was the first year we went to Nike regionals and nationals, so it was all a new experience for us. But last year, and I think we're going to do it again this year, is states on a Wednesday, and then giving them kind of a mental break and a physical break for that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. and then come back, just reset and refresh that following Monday and get ready to go for the next month of training. Because I think sometimes after we started running in June, and so after a long set of training and building for something, they just need a little mental break and then reset and rebuild.
I got one question. Can I offer? So you beat Timpanogos twice already, Murray and BYU, and then you got displaced at your most recent meet by Timpanogos. Do any of those circumstances, any of those meets matter when it comes to the state meet in October? Will you use any of that, or will it have any bearing on how you can perform?
Like as far as preparation for the
kids?
Well,
mentally thinking you've beaten them twice, does that even matter going into the state meet?
Yeah, I think, well, especially like BYU, you're missing a number 5 runner, so that we kind of took a hit for that. And then last weekend, our number 5 runner just wasn't up to where he usually is. So I think that plays into it. But so I think the boys are confident that when they run well, they'll do well. But I definitely use both the, hey, you guys are capable of doing these great things, along with, hey, this is what happens when we don't come out and perform, both as motivation to help these guys finish strong at state, because we really want to do well at state. We have big goals for state and region at Southwest, or Nike Southwest. So.
All right, well, thank you for being on our show with us, Samantha. It was wonderful talking to you, and obviously your team's doing tremendous things out in Utah. All the best of luck to you.
Thanks.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, bye.
All right. Springville, they're back. I mean, after last year and the success they saw getting NXN for the first time, I think a lot of us weren't sure how they would be able to reload, but they're back, and that matchup in the 4A Utah State meet is going to be incredible. A lot of state meets around the country, when they're broken up by division, typically all the talent is divided as well. But now with Timp running with them, you also have some programs like Olympus and Ogden. Aiden Troutner's going to be up there with the individuals. And this is a really deep, you could probably argue this is one of the deepest single classifications for boys cross country this year among any state in the country. And this is going to be an amazing race to follow to see how, because of course it'll also have a lot of implications there for the NXN South Regional, but that Utah 4A state race is going to be crazy with those teams again.
I love how she talked about it's new territory being ranked, and you don't know really how to react, when you are that team now. Like last year, all that stuff was new to them, like region and national, meet. So now new territory, they're the big dogs in Utah.
Absolutely.
American Fork. Drops a little bit, to Timpanogos.
Davis also typically up there with American Fork. Both, and Timp and Springville now are top dogs in Utah.
Yeah, but they have a really talented runner in Grant Garner. I mean, obviously he's going to get recruited at some level, but we have a little more recruiting news coming up, right?
Yeah, so we're going to jump back into the recruiting rundown for the first time. Weekly series we're bringing back. We are heavily used last season. And first to kick it off, I'm going to talk about Noah Green. He's one of the top hurdlers last year. And Noah, looking at his top 5 schools, he's taking a look at Ohio State, Miami, Kentucky, Georgia, and South Carolina. He announced his top 5 earlier this month, and he is one of the top hurdlers in this entire class. To briefly look at where he's coming from indoors, he went 7.72 in the 60 hurdles, which makes him number 1 in the class of 2018. 13.53 in the 110s is number 2, and 36.28 300 hurdles is number 3. So he is top 3 in all of his major events. He's also got a 53 in the 400 hurdles, so super legit. Noah Green, really strong schools. He was down in Miami this weekend taking a visit. Shout out to my boy BT. See him out there in those photos. But Monty Carruthers, another stud out of Illinois. She's also looking at Georgia, UK, Miami. She was also down taking that official to Miami. This is the official visit season. Athletes are out there. But Noah Green, he's an impact athlete in the hurdles. Those are all programs that are known for having some strong hurdles. Georgia, after doing really well in terms of the field events and the multis, they could really pick up some points in the track. And so picking up a guy like Noah Green would be really strong for that Georgia program. But right now, Noah Green, keep an eye out for him as we go into the recruiting rundown. For everyone else out there, the recruiting rundown is back. We're going to be featuring athletes all week long. Make sure to tweet at MileSplit to follow all our latest recruiting news. Tell us where your top 5 schools are, where your official visits are. We'll be announcing those decisions as they come along. So make sure to tweet at MileSplit, tweet at me at Travis Miller Flow. Me keeping you lined in with all the recruiting news. on the recruiting rundown.
Noah Green is a transfer from Kansas, correct? St.
Yes,
Thomas Aquinas.
that is right.
So the rich get richer. In Texas, they're always known as sort of a rich sprinting state, right? With Noah Green.
Very strong.
And this is a really interesting opportunity for Noah Green. He's going to see the kind of competition which he hasn't seen before. Duncanville is a really strong sprint program. They've had really strong hurdlers in the past. Not that Kansas isn't a strong track state, but we know that Texas is another level, especially in the short sprints. The 110 hurdles, they're really strong for him. He's going to come and see the type of competition week to week, which he hasn't had in the past. And he's openly said that he got much better in the postseason once he started going to New Balance, USATF JOs, and he finally could go head-to-head against some higher caliber athletes. We now, just in Texas, you've got Eric Edwards, who's also the only athlete in the country who's better than him in the 110 hurdles. So we have Noah Green now, Eric Edwards going head-to-head. Hopefully we'll see some great matchups at events like Texas Relays. But this is a really great opportunity for Noah Green, who has already established himself as one of the best hurdlers in the entire country. He's going to come into a stronger track program than he's ever been. He's going to have better training partners and better competition on a week-to-week basis. So I think for him, he's already at the top of the list, but we could really see him make some leaps and jumps once we get into the track season again.
I'm not doubting it. We had great action take place over the weekend. Our biggest meet, which was on Flow Track, was Roy Griek Invitational. I'm going to toss it to you guys first. What was the best moment for you, or maybe the most surprising moment for you?
I'm going to take this one here.
Yeah, go for it, Brian.
I think as I was counting from the boys' varsity race there, and I was counting the guys come across the line, I was like, Great Oak. There's Wayzata. And I'm counting in my head. I'm like, oh, man, like this is going to be so close. And it was just so epic, just on edge. I was waiting for the scores. I was like, Corey, like, what's the update? I think I texted you like 4 times, like, what's the update? Have you gotten anything? And then when Great Oak came away, all I have to say is, Travis, I got you on that one. And the Bills also beat Denver. So I just want to pull that in there.
That was a rough 2 days.
I think I win twice on that.
Rough 24 hours for me. But, I think listening to Doug Soul's interview, they approached that race the exact way they had to, exact where we blitzed Wayzata. They came out of the race, because if you go into Roy Griek and try to race Wayzata's race, they're going to beat you every time. They came out and raced how they know how to race best. You get out the gate, you run hard, you run fast, you don't look back. And like you said, you hang on just as strong as you can and hope you have enough to hold them off. It's exactly how they did. Wayzata methodically moving up throughout the race, but they're not used to racing teams that race like that. And that's a very California, I think Texas Southern mentality with these fast track courses. You get out, you get out hard and fast, and you just go until you don't have anything left. And that's Wayzata wasn't, I think, prepared for that
I said this in the broadcast, but I felt like they were racing a different race than they normally would. I mean, Grant Price and Khaled Hussein would have been at the front if they had, really just told themselves, I want to race at the top. But they were racing conservatively from the front or from the middle, and then they wanted to build up. But
that's how they race Griek, though. That's not different from what they've done in the past.
If that race was 6K, Wayzata wins that meet, right? But I don't care if they finish second. I think they have enough depth in that team to really make up a difference, in a big meet, in a regional meet, a national meet, where nerves sometimes get a hold of you. Really, you might go out a little bit too fast. I think Wayzata is very conservative, and I like the fact that they went out that way.
Yeah, and Grant Price didn't have a great race. He's a guy he's usually right up with Khalid attached to the hip, but he wasn't. He was off. If he was, and we could ifs, ands, or buts, Great Oak won. That's a fact. But if Grant Price is running back to where he is as normal self, not assuming a great race, but just more of a standard race, now we're talking about 10 points or less between those two teams, because he was their 6th man in that race. He's usually their 2nd. Khalid Hussein is interview talking about he's coming off an injury from the summer, so maybe he's not yet ready. The Great Oak boys take off. Maybe he doesn't have that yet. He's still coming back, trying to work into fitness. Great Oak executed that race to perfection. You got to give them a lot of credit for coming to a course they've never run at before. The teams that this is almost like a home meet for some of these Minnesota teams, and Great Oak said, we don't care. We're going to run the race how we know how to do it. And they almost won the girls' title, too. They came so close to sweeping.
They prepare in a way that not a lot of teams do. Brian, you were in California when, you visited Great Oak, and they visualize, after practice some of these things that they hope to do and accomplish at meets. And the visualization, while it's a little weird or maybe unorthodox, it works sometimes because it helps prepare you mentally for a race.
Yeah, and this is really interesting, too, because now – I was talking with Doug Souls, and Ariana Griffiths is someone who didn't make the trip out to Minnesota. She actually stayed back, ran the Dana Hills Invite. She's a younger athlete. She was top 25 overall in that entire meet, running out of one of the smaller division sophomore races, and he expects her to be in that top 5. So she wasn't even there in Minnesota. This team has some scary depth. They're not even running a full roster right now.
Yeah, talking about Ariana Griffiths there. She's their secret weapon. Doug Souls calls her the secret weapon because she had a little bit of complications, but now she's back, ready to go, stronger than ever, but they're saving her for when it really counts and when she's really needed.
I feel like we need to get off this California kick. All we do is talk about California teams.
I mean,
we love you, Doug Souls, but we're going to stop talking about Great Oak for a while. I really
Yeah, well, to Wyzetta's credit, you know, they did run a strong race against the second best team in the country. It just they ran a good race in terms of probably what their coach told them to do, but you know, who knows exactly what their coach said, but I can see from, you know, running in the past, what they did, I think, was try to pack up that pack mentality. And I think, like you said, if they would have just had a little bit more space or executed a little faster and bend out just a little bit in front of that group, then they would have done a little bit better.
You know what's mind-blowing to me? Sorry to cut you off right there.
I think they got bottled in, though.
Yeah, they did. But looking at, even just going through the predictions from last week, we had over 180 entries. Maybe one picked Great Oak boys to win. They're the number 2 team in the country. They were ranked higher than Wyzetta. The girls, Great Oak was picked, but more of that wasn't super surprising. But the boys, almost no one was giving Great Oak a shot in this race. I picked Wyzetta, but I think it's crazy how few people actually picked Great Oak.
Right.
It almost seemed like they were the underdog.
That's a big surprise there. I mean,
it's not a surprise to me that people did not pick Great Oak because they had so much against them variable-wise. I mean, travel, leg fatigue, running week to week.
You're still the second best team in the country.
But you're also you're traditionally running 3-mile courses. You have to go into a Le Bolstad course that's like up and down, hilly, crushing you at every moment. So they had to navigate a lot of difficult circumstances just to run a good race, but they did.
You can go watch the interview on MileSplit.com with Khalid Hussein after the race. Wyzetta's #1 man. They said that they weren't ready for the heat.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be able to adapt to different situations, and he said that they couldn't handle it. That impacted their race. And I know we always talk about the cold, but you got to be able to handle everything.
I can tell you one thing.
The heat came at them that time, and they weren't ready.
Great Oak was ready for that heat because that day I was there, I almost passed out during the workout, running up the hills trying to chase after them. So they were ready.
Do we have any workout footage of you running up hills chasing after Great Oak?
There might be a couple, Pete.
Doug, if you got anything, get us up.
Well, two of the most surprising, maybe upset moments were the actual winners of these races. Emily Covert out of Minneapolis, Washburn. If you ask MileSplit Minnesota, they would have said, we predicted this. No one else did, but they apparently did. Emily Covert won the maroon race in 2013. She had traditionally gone out really fast every single GRIAC that she had been at previously, but she kind of held back a little bit in this race. Let Grace Ping went out in front in the beginning and then made her move, maybe after 1.5K, 2K. But Emily Covert, really great performance, and she jumps to the top of sort of the discussion.
I think you see it with both Derek Peters and Emily. Like they both played that smart race, and they kind of bided their time just a little bit and then attacked. And that's when you really saw them get after it and do what they did best.
And I'm not going to lie, Corey, I mean, the full replay is up on MileSplit.com. You got to check it out. Our man Corey Mull in the commentary. You tricked me. When I was watching that race, you were talking about how you had just been on a workout with Grace Ping. We got some more footage coming at you from that as well, so stay tuned to MileSplit.com. But how you had talked to Grace and her coach, and they're actually working more on her kick and being able to close. As I was watching that gap go out, as you were saying that, I was like, she's doing it on purpose. She's trying to work on her kick, okay? I kept waiting. Wait a second.
She's working.
I was like, where's that kick?
She doesn't have the kick right
I was
now.
like, she's going to come back. She's going to come back. That's what she's working on. That's what Corey. You lied to me, Corey. You lied to me.
I think I don't worry about Grace Pink's performance at all here. I think she has plenty left in the tank, and she's only going to get much better. She doesn't necessarily need to win this race to, cement her status among the nation's best.
Did you or did you not pick her to a national? So does this impact your thoughts there?
Firmly believe Grace Ping is my national frontrunner for NXN. I firmly believe that. So I'm sticking to that. But Derek Peters, I really wanted to see him run just because we don't get very much chances to see a guy like that. But he is tall and physically imposing. Like he's a big physical runner. But he was phenomenal. He just seeing him sort of push through after 3K, just like dominating this course.
Yeah, and that definitely is a power runner's course with those constant, no like super sharp, steep hills, a lot of rolling terrain. If you can fight your way through that kind of a course, I think that lends itself 194 speed rating. So
that's impressive.
Is that the top?
Super legit.
Or no, 197 was Brody, right?
We had 197, and Danny Kilray's got one up there, but 194 for a solo performance. And that was, the teams are really strong individuals, maybe not as much as year past, but for a guy who's never never ran like this before, and this is his chance on the national stage, so I do think there was a lot of pressure on him. I don't know if he would have a lot of pressure in terms of individual competition, but sort of a make-or-break race in terms of this is one of my few chances to get out here in front of some people, and that is it was shocking how much he won. I think we knew he was the top guy coming in, but that was a really dominant performance.
He definitely seized the moment. I mean, what do you guys think about that performance in Atlanta? Jacob McLeod and Sam Bowers. I mean, less than a second determined that race at Wingfoot XC.
How many Jacob McLeod has to have the most? He's going to have the most close finishes of any guy. He just can't just get an easy race. This poor guy's like, what do I got to do? Just cruise for once.
I think that their speed rating was something pretty high as well.
It was 190.
190. Yeah. So I mean, so definitely it was a great race between those two, and for it to come down to the wire, I think Sam Bowers also has to get a good look. And you know, talking about Sam Bowers, Milton, Georgia. How about those guys?
I got to issue an official apology to the entire city of Milton, Georgia. I wrote them off in our preseason show in the early weeks. I said I needed to see something more because I just couldn't judge, but I apologize to Milton, Georgia. You proved me wrong. These guys are legit.
Hashtag Travis is wrong. Sorry.
They ran well.
I just want to say real quick, there's a Sam Bowers fan page. You guys need to follow it. So
there we go. Shout out Sam Bowers fan page.
Well, he won our national performers last week. He definitely does have a fan base. So
there we go. Say that's awesome. I think for me, you know, in our Flow 50, they're moving up this week.
Yeah, and you got to give a look to Sam Bowers, to get up.
Also, the Cheese Man from Texas, Carter Cheeseman, 14:49, I believe. Keller Invitational, crazy performance.
Yes.
We're kind of still unsure how long that course is, but
I'm pretty unsure about any course in the entire state of Texas in terms of course length. But regardless of whether that was a 3 mile or 5K, that's a crazy fast time.
Solo effort.
We're still waiting to see that Cheeseman, Alex Mayer, like both going straight everything they got to see what we'll see out of there. Because Alex Mayer, we all came in, man, he's just going to like jog through the Texas season. It's going to be super boring. We're not going to get a race. But now Cheeseman's in the mix. I really want to see those guys go head to head.
Yeah. What about throughout the nation? We had a lot of other performances happen. Loudoun Valley once again establishing themselves. I mean, they're, you know, at GRIAC, we also had FM last week on the girls' side, North Naperville girls. Anything stand out for you guys team-wise over this past weekend that really kind of like helps?
I think something I just keep coming back to is that Southeast region. And now that we know Milton is legit, it just gets
stronger and stronger.
Right. If Green Hope, unfortunately, they were sick in that matchup. We're not quite sure where they stand. St. Xavier, maybe not at that level. But, man, with Milton now looking really good, I don't want to go as far as say there's a potential wild card bid here, but this region is stronger than it's ever been. And this is going to make it super exciting and in a place where quite often gets overlooked in terms of the team races.
Yeah, I'd have to agree there. There's just so much depth, and you know, you look at St. Xavier racing against Carmel there, and I think it was like
it was a close
race, like 70 to 98 points. So they're holding their own against some of the best in the country, even there. And then you said Green Hope. You're just bringing up all these examples that really make a case for that Southeast region being extremely strong. You know, I think also another race that kind of hurt a lot of the teams is that Bowdoin Invitational in New York. We didn't see some teams perform the way that I thought they were going to perform.
Right.
Some Staples, St. John's all kind of dropped the ball a little bit. We're still waiting to see Princeton, their full squad now that Pinheiro, is that how you pronounce his name? Pinheiro? Osseo Pinheiro?
Yeah. Sasio, I believe.
Yeah, he's going to be back in the mix for them. You know, we should see them hopefully do better. And then CBA, we get their first glimpse.
Right. CBA's back. I know the speed ratings aren't off the charts, but first race of the year, they're just kicking off the dust. They're top 15 team coming in. I don't think there's nothing yet that indicates this is a podium team, but there's also nothing that indicates we need to drop them at all. I think this is a very good indication they're fit, they're ready to race, and now we got to see how they develop into some major races.
Moving on to a more compelling subject when it comes to a former high school graduate out of Texas, Ryan Trahan, that is now at Texas A&M. He is a cross-country and track runner. You know, recently last week, William Grundy wrote about the fact that, you know, he has a water bottle company that he has developed, and now he's trying to make money from. Still in college, still an athlete, and now the NCAA is cracking down on some of the things he's doing with YouTube and just his business in general. So we have some thoughts about this.
Yeah, we do.
We have
I have thoughts.
We have maybe Travis going to be arguing on the side of the NCAA.
Yeah, you know, this is a company he started in high school with his friend, now a freshman NCAA. it seems like this has been a shocking situation to him going through this, but it's pretty straightforward. You know, if we look at what the exact NCAA wording is, student athletes may establish his or her own business, provided the student athlete's name, photograph, appearance, or athletics reputation are not used to promote the business. That's pretty cut and dry. And so the fact that this came out of nowhere is this shouldn't be a shocking situation. To me, it's not a story. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward what the NCAA rules are, what their guidelines are, what they will and will not allow athletes to do. And that's what he is doing with his company. And whether or not we agree with it, you got to be ahead of these kind of things. I think you got to recognize that this was coming and just be in front of it. And the NCAA has been pretty lenient with giving him the ability. Just you got to separate the two. You got to separate not leverage your position as an athlete to sell your products, and that is pretty cut and dry. And in terms of NCAA eligibility, those are things you just need to know
boiling
in
over
and out.
Over here.
You just need to understand those things, know the situations you're going into, and you just got to be ahead of it.
First of all, this is completely a story. Every time this happens with an athlete, it is a story. We can't brush this under the rug just because, the NCAA has rules, right?
Yeah.
The rules may be wrong in the first place. The NCAA, to some, is the big bad villain, right? Because of, let's see, NCAA as a whole profits from sports enterprises, right? They make billions of dollars off of their sports programs and, broadcasting sports and teams as a whole, right?
Yeah.
They make billions of dollars from sports. And here is Ryan Trahan starting a business. You go to college to learn about business, to form opinions, and to learn about the free market. So he's forming a business, and he's trying to make money. So NCAA profits off the likenesses sometimes of their athletes to make millions. He's trying to profit off his own likeness. He should have authority over his own likeness to sell his water bottles. Now, my point would be, there's got to be a middle ground somewhere. We gotta produce sort of a cap or a regulation that allows athletes that have great ideas and want to make money to ultimately pursue their goals. And I think selling water bottles as a whole is a hard business. Like, everybody sells water bottles. Like, he's not making a lot of money through this. So I think the NCAA,
there was a report either in Washington Post or somewhere else that said he's made over $50,000 in the last year on this company.
By Ryan Trahan?
By Ryan Trahan. And they're not telling him he can't do it. They never said you can't do this.
Can't use his likeness is what they're saying.
And your position as an NCAA athlete to sell water bottles.
The point is, he should have his own authority over his own likeness, right? To do whatever he wants with it, right? He is an athlete of Texas A&M, but he owns his own likeness. So if he sells a water bottle, that should be under his own purview, because that's him. He's a business owner.
What do you guys think? We're live on Facebook right now. Trent's taking in comments. But if you're watching live or you're watching after the show, tweet at us, #MileSplitLive. We want to know what your thoughts are, because it's definitely a hot topic, regardless of what end of the spectrum you're on. Everyone has an opinion on this. Where do you see that moving forward?
I see the NCAA cracking down like they always do. And I see Ryan Trahan making his business to fit certain parameters. But I feel like, it's almost impossible sometimes to fight this fight, because the NCAA has all these lawyers and people who can kind of bury you. But Ed O'Bannon made a great case against NCAA and EA Sports a while back, but he pursued it. But it takes time, it takes money, it takes effort. So is it really worth it for a college athlete? I mean, he'll probably just do what he has to do to keep the business, but under the guidelines as he's a college athlete.
Yes, he has to separate the two. He can promote his company
it.
across social media, but it has to be on a separate channel from his athletics-related social media account, and that's in order to gain. He did not have eligibility. That's the steps he needs to take to gain back his eligibility to run with Texas A&M.
The fact that even his eligibility came into question is baffling to me. I mean, the guy.
That to me is less of an issue. It's like you have to understand that. You have to understand that going to college. Any athlete going into the NCAA system needs to understand everything that's at work there. I don't know if it's at fault with him, what kind of information was provided to him once he got to Texas A&M, but those kind of things got to come out of the woodworks pretty quickly. And for this, not a lot of athletes are in his situation. Not a lot of athletes have this side company they started, which is an incredible entrepreneurial enterprise from him. You got to give him credit as a high school athlete starting that, but you got to know, as whatever organization you're in with the school, you have to be pulling the kind of information out of the athletes to make sure you're getting in front of it. To me, when I heard this whole thing is a surprise coming out of nowhere, I'm like, man, there was a ball dropped. There's a ball dropped somewhere down the line.
You have compliance officers at Texas A&M. They should have known where your business was, and obviously, I don't know where that's at, but I mean, obviously, he should have people at Texas A&M kind of guiding him through this process.
And I think they did as soon as they figured out, like, this could be breaking the rules potentially. So
it seemed like both them and the NCAA tried to find a solution, and whether or not you agree with it, or certainly Ryan, it's not his ideal solution.
Right.
You know, his ideal solution, because he has a YouTube channel, he does his videos, blogs within the Texas A&M, but he can no longer include his company within that, which is definitely a tough position. I mean, how do you see that for college athletes, that it's free reign to operate as you wish?
No, I think there should be a regulated cap, as I said, to help athletes pursue their dreams, right? And that could be business oriented, it could be anything, starting your own YouTube channel, but there should be caps based upon how much you can earn, right? And once you get past a certain cap, maybe you need to stop or something, but there should be some type of incentive programs by your colleges, your NCAA to help these athletes who have creative minds, allow them to pursue them. So
yeah, if you've dealt with a similar situation, let us know what your ideas are. What are your solutions? And we'll compile some of our best answers we get across social media. Tweet at us, Facebook. Let us know what you think and how the NCAA and athletes could come to a compromise here to move forward.
And we'll try to stay on top of this story as it unfolds. But we're going to move on now to buy or sell.
So buy or sell. Let's go.
Talked to Samantha Smith of Springville. We talked about Timpanogos being a team that they're going to match up at the state level. Who do you pick, buy or sell at this point? Do you buy Springville winning a state title against Timpanogos?
Brian, go ahead.
I'm buying Springville on this one. We saw it already. They've had a couple wins over Timpanogos. I think that they get Grant Price up there, strong, running well. Grant Gardner, thank you. Sorry.
Too many Grants.
Yeah, there's a lot of Grants.
Chill, Grants. Come on.
You get them up there running well, and you get the rest of those guys, like I said, closing the gap. They've been pushing through and fighting through most of these meets. They haven't really tapered too much except for this Bob Furman meet, and they performed. So.
Yeah, that's a really tough one. After their race this weekend, Timpanogos said Springville makes us better. And that seems to be the moral of the story here at Utah over the past couple of years. The teams feed off each other, and that's why they keep getting better. But I'm going to go with Timpanogos. I think they're gradually progressing through the season. Maybe they weren't where they wanted to be to start out. It seems like every season they get underestimated for the bigger, maybe name programs in Utah. And every season they come out of not necessarily nowhere, but they still shock us every single time. I'm done being shocked by Timpanogos. I'm buying Timpanogos to win the 4A state championship.
All right. One of the fastest meets from last year was McNeil Invitational in Texas. It produced a couple guys at the 1440s and the 5K. Buy or sell, a boy goes sub 1440 at McNeil this year. It's on the state course in Texas on Round Rock.
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt if Alex Mayer's there, it's a lock, especially if Carter Cheeseman rolls down for it, that you go 1440, 1430. I mean, these guys are going to be flying.
That's always a fast course every year. There's no way you cut it. They're going to run fast there, but we'll see. Yeah, Alex Mayer is the big key there. He's the guy in Texas that could do it if anybody can do it.
I want to see the cheese too, because he runs on taps. So at the state level, he's not going to face anybody. So UIL, if he's there, he'll get to face some UIL competition.
This would probably be his last chance before the NXN regional to race against Alex Mayer. So fingers crossed we get to see that matchup. Alex raced here last year, so this is the one race we all want to see, because both these guys are going to split off and do their own thing until mid-November at the regional. So this is our one shot to get a really awesome individual race in Texas.
Yeah. Buy or sell, Desert Twilight XC in Arizona, best girls meet of the weekend.
Oh, man, I think you got to say yes. This is a bit of a down weekend. I think as a lot of other areas of the country gear up for what we'll see in the coming weeks. Best girls race, I think yes. McQuaid is not quite as strong as it typically is out in New York. You have some Canadian teams coming down, but not all the strong programs that typically go out there will. Shen's the top one on the girls' side, but I think this weekend Desert Twilight's going to take the cake.
I think Desert Twilight might be strong, but I also think, I haven't looked at all the entries of all the meets yet, but I know that Nike Portland also is another big meet there on the West Coast. If you get some of those Washington, Oregon teams battling it out, we could see some good, maybe even California teams. I know quite a few are going up there, like Eleanor Roosevelt on the guys' side. On the girls' side, I'm not quite sure, but that could be also a really good meet that could surprise a few people.
I don't think we should undersell the importance of that meet.
Yeah,
for those of you out there trying to keep track, for
meet.
us trying to make the rankings, these Oregon teams are driving us insane because a lot of dual meets, a lot of tri meets. Times it's like great as long as they're running fast, we know they're fit. But how good are they? I have no idea. Race somebody, will you?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, taking a look at Jesuit and both Sunset, who are in our rankings, those girls are flying in their tri meets and their dual meets. Like, I can't kind of predict where they're going to go, but still, like, the times are indicative of where you should be in terms of the season. So, I mean, they're not getting speed rated these tri meets, but I think they do say something about some of these teams. That's why we're keeping Sunset and Jesuit in the rankings, because we don't want to be fooled, you know, when they do get to big meets and then they're killing it. So.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get those California teams out there. Every once in a while, you see a team from Utah. Timp went last year, and that was a real breakout race for them, beating some of those Northwest teams. We'll kind of see how that plays out. But that's definitely one of the kind of lower key meets of the weekend, and because you get those kind of quieter teams, but it's a sneaky good one.
Yeah.
All right, Flow 50 updates. Obviously, we did our team rankings today, and we'll start first with the boys' rankings. It stayed, for the most part, pretty consistent in a lot of ways. So what happened with the boys' rankings, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, things stayed kind of consistent. There wasn't a whole lot of shifting except for that bottom tier. Like I said earlier, just some of those meets at that Bowdoin Park Invitational kind of dropped the ball. They didn't perform the way I thought that they would, and I feel like the room here felt that they would. So a lot of those teams fall out, and some California teams kind of step up and jump in, as they were kind of close to Great Oak at that Woodbridge Classic. It was a big meet, a big invitational. They performed very well. They get the nod and go ahead. Milton, Georgia, like I said earlier, huge race from them. They jump up quite a bit. Those are probably some of the biggest moves. And obviously, Wayzata gets a little bump up after finishing so close to Great Oak. Yes, they lost, but we can't stress that enough. That was a huge race, and they held their own very well.
Yeah, to hit you with some numbers here on the past 2 weeks not being super crazy, if I can read my chicken scratch, you're 1, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 17, 18, 12 of your top 20 teams in the country just kind of won.
Yeah.
They didn't race anybody. They just ran. They won. That's great. Doesn't mean much. So 12 of your top 20 teams, nothing really happened. Wayzata Great Oak lived up to all the hype, everything we wanted out of it. That was one of the biggest matchups we'll see maybe all season in terms of just two teams going head-to-head that high in the rankings. Right now, not a lot's going on the boys' side. Interesting thing kind of developing out of New York. We've been a little weaker in the boys' programs over the past couple of years. Burnt Hills is coming on really strong. Shout out to Kyle Brazel on New York Webmaster. Their top four are almost as good as the top four maybe in any other team in the country, but they're really searching for that fifth man. They haven't quite been able to find him yet. Ithaca also giving them a run for their money this weekend, just losing by 9 points out in Baldwinsville. So Ithaca, now they're in the mix down to the bottom side of the rankings. Both these teams, we'll see how they develop through the season and whether or not they'll be potential NXN contenders to come out of that region. I don't know if we'll see anybody strong enough for a wild card bid unless one of them gets significantly better, but the FM boys are still really strong. So New York is really progressing, and some other new teams are stepping up. Burnt Hills, I'm really interested to see how that fifth man comes along. So if that fifth man, if they can find him, this is an extremely legit team. This takes them maybe from a 2025 team to definitely a top 15 to top 10 team. So there's a huge question mark here. It's a really big question mark, but if they make that leap, this team all of a sudden enters a whole new conversation.
Just one note about our rankings. It is a collaborative effort between our entire MileSplit staff. It's not one guy saying, I'm going to put you here.
We just throw them at the board and see where it lays
It's collaborative. It might not seem like it at times. It might seem like they're all over the place, but we do.
And it's meant to reflect where teams are running right now, not where teams will be at the end of the season or trying to predict how NXN will finish. It's right now, this week, this point of the season, which are the best teams in the country, who's running the best.
Which speaks to the Flow 50 girls rankings.
Oh, we got into it this morning,
So Fayetteville Manlius went from number 1 to number 3.
Yes.
And mostly it was on the heels of great performances by other teams. Buchanan moved up to number 1, Naperville North, which won Griak, moved up to number 2, and FM, which ran well at their Wayne meet, moved down to number 3.
Yeah.
But I think the argument really stemmed from they're not dominant. They're not crushing people, so they shouldn't be number 1. I disagree in some ways.
Why is FM number 1 right now?
Well, prove me otherwise. have them lose a meet. I mean, they're not going to lose. They're going to race depending on the meet. We looked at Regriac. We talked about it extensively. You prepare for that specific meet and that course and those teams. FM's preparing for every single meet that they get into. They're not just going to run the same way every single meet. They have to plan. And that plan might not be, we're not going to go all out 100%. We're not going to crush these teams into little pieces along the way. So for me, FM is right where they always have been. But you got to give credit to North Naperville and Buchanan. I do agree that they did have
otherwise known as Naperville North. But,
oh, jeez. Wow.
Coming from just like mind blown from Griak, too much going on. But I have to, but this is not FM like. This is not the FM we're used to. They don't race much during the season, but you have to at least execute. This was not just, oh man, they had an off day. They ran poorly. This was not a #1 team in the country performance.
They did
Look
not
at their
run
top
poorly.
athletes. Look at how far they were off. Look at the speed ratings. This team that ran at the pre-state meet was not the same team that ran previously. And what we're looking at right now, who are the best teams in the country, Great Oak, North Naperville, as you call them, and all these other programs are running great week after week after week. They're going head-to-head with other top 5 ranked programs and executing and winning, and the speed ratings back it up. Right now, FM has one great race that shows they could be #1 and one race that makes me think they are terrible. So when you look at those two things, I don't know.
Stretch,
I don't know who is FM in 2017. I don't know. Is this the team that lost to Elmira a number of years ago at McQuaid? Is this the team that's going to sweep everyone as we're used to? Last year, coming off the speed ratings, looking at where they were and where they could be, there was a lot of talk about this year's 2017 FM program potentially being one of the strongest they've ever had, and we know how good this team has been. That's not what we've seen so far. And it's not just one girl had an off race. A number of the girls did not race even close to where they should have been.
I don't care. I don't care. I'll use an analogy right now of the New England Patriots, which I mentioned shows ago.
Yeah.
They might be awful in the first 8 weeks of the NFL season, but you know who everyone picks at the beginning of the year? The Patriots. Why? Because they're proven. They've always won championships. They have a great system, and they peak at the right time. I know we've talked a lot about what are you in the moment for us. We're judging you based on what you've done for me lately.
Yep.
But there's a different little scenario with FM. I have them at top unless they prove me otherwise, and I think they are #1 unless proven otherwise.
Brief Patriot shout out: Tom Brady won the Palatine Invitational this weekend.
Oh yeah.
Legitimately, Tom, check the results. Go to Illinois MileSplit.
I saw that and I thought it was a mess up.
All right.
And it
so
was Tom Brady.
he's already transitioning out of football. Hasn't had a couple, he had a big comeback this weekend. But
I don't know about his leg speed though. Are you sure he has it?
Dude, it's cross country. You don't need the fast twitch.
All right.
But when we look at FM, I understand all that, but this is so out of character for them. Even when McQuaid, a number of years ago when they lost Elmira was the first time in 7 years they lost to a team from New York. Now we're a couple years removed from that. This wasn't just they had an off day. They only finished 30 points around their head of Niskayuna. Niskayuna is not a top-ranked team. They have a really good athlete at the front, but they're not really on the bubble either. That should not happen. You should not finish that close. This wasn't just, we have a bit of an off day, maybe like Elmira a couple years ago. That's what you look at there. They didn't have their best race, but Elmira was an extremely good program that year that beat them. Elmira ran better. FM didn't have the worst day. They lost to a very good team, a ranked top 10 ranked team, and then FM went to peak the Nationals. This is an FM team that finished 30 points ahead of a team that's not on our bubble list and had a horrible day that was off the charts, and that's why I'm getting them out of here. We're bumping them down because this just stands out. This is not a performance I've seen from this FM team before. It's not it's an early season. This is something that shocked me. I look at the results. I thought maybe there's a typo. Maybe the results missed a couple athletes or something because the numbers just didn't make sense. And that's why, to me, I just got to move them down.
Well, what do you think?
Trent, you got something on Facebook?
We got a question on Facebook.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Can the coach of FM change this around and throw some magic dust?
They don't need magic dust. They don't need magic dust.
Feeds into your Patriots correlation there. Bill Belichick, Bill Ayres. It's just Yes, they need magic dust. I'm telling you.
I'm sorry.
Find the magic dust.
I hope they're watching this and just shaking their head, rolling their eyes a little bit. I hope they're doing it because they don't need to change anything about the program.
I don't know.
I really don't.
I mean, there's no doubt there's no one who Belichick's cross country more than Bill Ayres here. Like, this guy has it figured out. No one needs to question that at all. but this is just not the FM team I'm used to seeing, and these other programs are running strong, they're running well, and this isn't like teams like North Naperville. They're not teams which you were like, oh man, they've never been this good before. This is a new experience. These are teams that know how to peak. They know when they need to race, what's important, what's not. So these teams that are good, same thing with Great Oak. These are not programs that's like, man, they just got really lucky this year, and this is a whole new experience. Maybe they're not going to peak right. These are people who know where they're at. They know what they're doing. They know how to get to NXN, and they're all planning for that. And so I think right now those teams are better than this FM team. There's so many question marks, and FM is not deep. They can't afford to lose anyone in their top 3, or it's done. They don't stand a chance against teams like Great Oak, who are bringing in more athletes, Naperville North, Wayzata. These programs have depth. FM does not, from what we've seen so far this year. So while they could potentially be very good, there's not a lot of leeway
So
there.
it's going to change. The Flow 50 will change in the next couple weeks.
Right, they could drop even lower.
You never know.
They could drop even lower.
But do you agree with our dropping of FM out of the #1 spot in our Flow 50 rankings? Make sure you comment at Twitter and on Facebook for us. Let us know. But we're going to finish out with another contest.
Yes.
What are you going with this week?
Yep, if you want to join the hundreds of people who have lost to me in the weeks past, I encourage you. As always, it's hashtag MileSplit Live, hashtag Beat Travis. Get involved, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, prediction contest. This week we're looking at Desert Twilight. Big matchup down in Arizona, preview course for the NXN Southwest Regional. Big matchup, individuals, teams. We're looking at individuals this week. So your MileSplit Live, Beat Travis prediction contest. You have to predict the individuals who are going to win and their winning time. I'm taking Samantha Shadler on the girls' side. She's going to run 17:13. And David Nelson from Hamilton, 15:11. Those are my 2 picks. Hashtag MileSplit Live, hashtag Beat Travis, individual winners and their times. Let us know what you think.
And remember, folks, he's going to look at every one of those submissions.
I have looked at
every declare that a win or a loss.
It's going to be more W's for me. I'm just saying, to reiterate my current record, because I can't say this enough, I am 455, 13, and 4. Just let that soak in for a minute. If we could take a moment of silence to recognize how good I am at knowing everything about high school cross country.
That's funny because wait, hold on. Because last week I think I beat you, so there's one in the win column for me because I chose Naperville and
Gotta throw you a bone every once in a while.
Well, this has been a great show. Thank you for watching. As always, we have some great content coming up over the week on milesplit.com. Make sure to tune in. Read stories, watch our video, tweet at us, and obviously, as always, watch our show.
The new updated Flow 50 cross country rankings are up new this morning, so make sure to check those out. Let us know what you think of the Flow rankings.
Yeah. And we'll be back here on Monday next week for another MileSplit Live, so make sure to tune in. We'll see you then. Thanks for watching.